Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Napick. Every week we talk about success and everything that goes along with it. You'll learn the principles of success, how to achieve success, and learn to overcome challenges that may be getting in the way of success in your life. You'll hear from Bill Napick, a radio personality and business development expert, along with insight from special guests. If you're ready to find your path to success or take the success you're enjoying to the next level, stay tuned. Successful Living with Bill Napick is on right now.
And welcome to the show, Successful Living with Bill Napick. And today, Successful Living with William Warren. He is an author of the latest book called Murder on Galveston Bay. Super awesome book. I am almost finished with it. William Warren, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And what a great book it is. First of all, let's tell people you live right here in the Houston area and we're friends. What inspired you to even come up with this book called Murder on Galveston Bay?
Well, I always thought I could write a murder mystery after reading them all my life, and I have been living in Houston as an adult more than 50 years. So as I read books, one of my favorite authors is a lady named Sarah Perinsky, who is from Chicago. And I look at most of the murder mysteries and the crime novels you read about are L.A., Chicago, New York. And I said, why not Houston? We have like 6 million people living here, and it's a big audience. And I think that the enjoyment part of the book is reading about some of the land sites and restaurants and things which the plot revolves around.
And I think that's interesting for people that are right here in Houston. And by the way, as we think about the potential audience for people when we write a book or something like that, the potential audience just for Houston alone is tremendous as far as the population that's here. And throughout the book, without giving it away, yes, you have a lot of characters that reflect Houston, so the people in Houston can identify with that, the landmarks, as you're saying, some of the highways we drive on and places around Galveston Bay, and even in between. There's a lot of things that people can identify with, but a thing that struck me this morning is that people that hear this show on the internet outside of Houston, let's say you're in Chicago or New York or something, it's kind of a great little visit to the Houston area.
I think so. I was advised one time by a writer who I respected very much, told me that people that live out of the state of Texas are always interested in the state of Texas and what goes on here. Murder on Galveston Bay would certainly get my attention if I lived somewhere out of the state. If I lived in New York, I think that would be an interesting thing to get away from the Brooklyn Bridge once in a while and talk about the Kemah Boardwalk.
Now, you're reading my mind. As soon as you said Brooklyn Bridge, I was thinking of the Kemah Boardwalk. That is correct. So there's some, and you're also right, William, and that is wherever people go. You can be in China, you could be in another state, but there's something about Texas, and I think there's something even more about Houston that people are kind of keeping their eye on us for many years.
Well, they should, since we're such a large city. What are we, fourth in the nation? I think we probably are moving up the ladder on that. And Houston's a great city. I'm proud and I'm happy that I live here with so many wonderful things that we have. Papacitos, not to mention one of them.
You're making me hungry.
That's worth coming to Houston for, right there. So Houston's a wonderful place. I'm glad I live here.
There's no doubt about it. We are talking with William Warren, the author of Murder on Galveston Bay, a murder mystery, entertaining all the way around. The other thing I'd like to tell people, I've heard, knowing you and your wife, Betty, a tremendous individual, one of the reasons I'm even on the radio to begin with, that's Betty Warren. She is incredible. But one of the things I think about is that, and I've heard you have been a reader for many years. People that listen to this show know we have a lot of authors on. But as a reader, let's tell people, first of all, before you wrote the book, you read a lot of books. So tell people about your love of reading and how that developed.
I love reading all my life, but I particularly like historical novels, things that come to my mind that are great books, are Gore Vidal's Lincoln. Those are the kind of things. I read a book recently called Valley Forge. I don't recall the author right now, but of course it's about Washington and those problems they had. It was a book of fiction based around true historical things. I enjoy those very much, with real characters and real people and real places that we know. But I've been a reader my whole life, and I enjoy that. And I will say this as a sidebar, I had a note from an old classmate when we were in high school. And when I was a high schooler, I played sports. And she said in her notes, she said, "Who would have thought that a gifted athlete like you would mature into a published writer?" And I thought that was one of the best compliments I'd ever had, because I wasn't so serious when I was younger. It's only, I think I got serious about thinking that I could write a book when I was about 35.
And the book is Murder on Galveston Bay. This book, how long did it take you to write the book? Because I know a lot of people out there, including me, say, "Oh, I'm going to write a book someday," and then there's so many complexions to it. You have to have an idea, then you have to have the time. But how much time did it take you to put this book together?
Well, time is really an important factor. I think many people could write very interesting books, but it's a time factor. And I actually started this book a number of years ago, and I dawdled around on it. And because I didn't actually like the room I was sitting in, I told Betty one time, she was telling me, "Why don't you finish that book?" I said, "Well, I would if I didn't have to sit in that room," which sounds silly, but the mood and the setting really does something, I think, for a person's creativity. So a few days later, she showed up with a brand new Apple Mac laptop, and she said, "You don't have any excuses now. Go wherever you want to go to write." So I moved downstairs where we have a lot of windows in the backyard, and I would take that thing, the laptop, with me many places. I've wrote some of it over at the Kemah Boardwalk, where we have a boat over there. I'd sit there and write some, but most of it's done right in the living room. But once I had the first 3 chapters done, and I really started in earnest to do it, it took me about 4 months. My writing is different than a lot of folks. I hear other authors say, "Well, I go down to my office at 7 in the morning and I treat it like a job." I'm retired. I don't treat it like a job. I have to be in the right frame of mind. It's fun to me and enjoyable. It's not a job.
Well, you're anticipating my question, because I remember
Sorry
talking.
about that.
No, that's all right. I was talking to Stuart Woods not that long ago, and he has the most regimented answer to this question, and that is, do you have a writing discipline? And he says, I write between 11 and 12. I write 1 chapter a day. And I thought that's kind of interesting, but most people have a different discipline. So what you're saying is that you just do it whenever it strikes you.
It's fun to me. It's enjoyable. It's a hobby that I enjoy very much. And when I sit down, sometimes if I can write one good paragraph, I feel real good about it, and then I can go about the rest of my day. Sometimes I can write several pages, and I feel good about that. But when I was finishing up the book, I would put in a little bit every day. But I think it's just because I personally got involved in the book and started really enjoying what I was doing.
When you wrote the first 2 chapters, did you know how the book was going to end? Did you have an outline, or?
No, I had no outline. In fact, the name of the book actually was going to be Murder on the Brazos, because I'm from the Freeport area, but I changed it rather quickly when I started looking at the 30,000 people that live there and the 6 million that live here. And actually, I was more familiar with Houston because I've lived here so many years. But no, I did not. After I got into about the first 100 pages, then I began to draw outlines on the next chapter. And then several chapters before I was finished, I had a real good idea where I wanted to take it and how to finish it.
That's fascinating. And I want to call attention, too. I think it's in any book, in any story, characters are so interesting. Where they're at is so interesting. But the names of characters are fascinating, too. Some of your characters have unique names, in my opinion, and that's Appleton Smith. First of all, I've never met anybody named Appleton, but it's a great name. Then you have certainly Sheriff Ben. You have... This is an interesting name to me, Bettis Tom Stovall. I don't know where you came up with
He's
that.
the bad guy in the book.
Well, let's tell people, as far as the names, you have Colorado Beer Can Billy. You have 2 Billies, Beer Can Billy, Colorado Billy. And if you want to know what these characters do, just get the book Murder on Galveston Bay by William Warren, our guest today. Let's tell people how you formulated the characters' names.
Well, the Bettis Tom fella, he would be perhaps a typical Southerner, and I was trying to think of a Southern name that would fit in there, that would stick out when people read the first line with his name in it. They'll probably remember this guy all the way through, even though he is a character all the way through and one of the main characters. But I thought that name, double name, first name, I thought that fit him real well. As the Appleton Smith, you could name everyone Caldwell or something, but I wanted something a little bit different, and he's referred to mostly, and his name is Appleton, but he's referred to mostly as App or Apple. And I'm able to use that distinction several times in the book, and when people were being serious with him, they called him Appleton. When they were friendly with him, they called him App or Apple. I think the name worked out very well for the character.
It's very enjoyable, and the names of I think for the reader, whatever the characters are named, as you're saying, that helps the enjoyment of the book and also to pique interest and bring the reader in. The other thing, now, I'd say about 3/4 through the book, the style that you're writing, and I notated this just last night, as far as the description. I think certainly a plot is so important. In the case of a murder, we always want to know who did it or how many people did it or the conspiracy, whatever. But just setting the scene, the individual things that characters do. I'm going to read just a few sentences. Now, I'm not going to say all the stuff he did, but here's just a slice of his morning. Apple ate a banana for breakfast and a little coffee and then returned to the bedroom. He selected a very old pair of khaki pants and a rather worn, soft, button-up dress shirt. Right there. That's so descriptive, William. I think that makes it very enjoyable, and that's the kind of writing throughout the book. I think it's those details.
Well, this scene right here had happened after he had had an accident, and he was slightly recovering from his accident, so it was important to him to wear soft, comfortable clothes, which was his style anyway. He had just gotten up early in the morning after he had returned from a visit in the hospital, and the apple ate a banana and walked out the door with a cup of coffee. I don't know how that came to me, but I'll have to tell you that is one of my wife's favorite lines in the entire book.
How did I find that out of the whole book? No, seriously, I was just reading, I don't know if it was last night or the day before, but when I read that, I'm like, that just flows so beautifully and puts you right there. You're with him doing that and that's the fun of reading, I think, one of the
this
benefits.
Character, he's a lovable guy anyway. We'd all like to be young. He's in his early 30s. He's very relaxed about what he does, but he's also at the top of his profession. But he doesn't carry himself like that. He's the kind of fellow that if you were at a business conference, there's always somebody sitting over on the sidelines who seems to be sloppy looking, not really paying much attention. But when the conference is over, he's the guy that's got 4 pages of legal pad notes and the first one up to go ask the professor or the conference leader a question. And that's the kind of person he is. Very laid back and very easy to underestimate.
Murder on Galveston Bay is the book, William Warren. The other thing, as we mentioned early on, is that throughout the book, there are, for those that are in the Houston area or those that like to watch us wherever they are, you select different, like the Dot Coffee Shop, I-45, Kemah Boardwalk, a lot of landmarks. How did you decide to choose one versus the other? Because we have a lot of things going on here in Houston.
Dot's Diner over on I-45, the Gulf Freeway South, right out of downtown, is an old landmark, actually. And my familiarity with that place started about 20 years ago when I met a publisher in that place to publish my first book. And then that was the days before they do it with computers and technology so much now. And he had what they call blue lines, which was a copy of the book just before it would be printed. And so I met him there, and over the years, I think it's kind of a local, the policemen who are on duty at night, late night, it's a dependable place. They can always go in there, but it is a Houston landmark. But one of my favorite places in Houston, Betty and I frequented, is a little Italian restaurant over in the Rice Village. And I've enjoyed so many nice meals in there, I couldn't help. But when they were going out for dinner, I couldn't help but mention Prego's in the Rice Village. It's a very cool place. In fact, I saw Dr. Duke in there one day and had a conversation with him when it was in the middle of the day. Places that I've been were easy to come up with in the book, and I enjoy the places, and I think other people would also.
Now, William, do you have any events coming up here in the Houston area if people want to see you? I know you've been doing a little local book tour around here. What's coming up where people can see you and hear about the book some more?
I'm going to be at the Galveston bookshop that's at 317 23rd Street. It's about a block off the Strand in Galveston on April the 13th from 2 to 4. That was the first person person or place that I've visited because it's got Galveston so prominently on the cover of the book. Incidentally, it's not totally about Galveston. It's about the whole Houston complex. But that was the first place that I went to see if I could sell some books there. And a very nice lady there, she was very enthusiastic, so I will be there. I'm working on a couple of other events with Barnes & Noble mainly, and have some good promises, but I don't have any date set for those events yet.
The book is Murder on Galveston Bay. William Warren is the author. It is a great read. Check it out. Also, William, do you have any other plans for other books? I mean, it's a major project.
Well, I'd like to tell you about one I'm working on now. Let me throw this in first, though. This book is available at Amazon and Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, any place that you buy books online, you can order the book today. I do know that the Pearland Barnes & Noble has it on their shelves and ready to sell. That's off 288 in the town center. But right now I'm working on, I was in the Navy in 1968 through 72, and I was on a destroyer mostly in the Western Pacific. And I'm writing a real tongue-in-cheek stories about true stories that happened while I was on that ship. It was an older, leftover World War II ship, and there were many, many interesting things that happened on that. I'm trying not to be disrespectful to anybody that was on the ship because I respect the men that was on it greatly, but there were a lot of comical things happened on that boat, so I'm looking forward to finishing that up. I'm about a third of the way through with that. I think it'll be a very enjoyable book.
So you were in the Navy, eh?
I was in the Navy.
So the love of the sea. In fact, you have your own sailboat. By the way, thank you for your service. And with the last couple minutes, William, what else would you like people to know?
I made a little note to myself this morning about encouraging people that feel like they can write a book to start it and to pursue that and do it perhaps in an easy way that doesn't put pressure on them. I think that older people, being an older person myself, there are a lot of interesting things about Houston that only the older people know. For myself, I remember Elvis at the Fat Stock show when it was in the old Coliseum before the Astrodome ever had a thought on anybody's mind. And there are a lot of people that can write very interesting things about Houston that occurred in perhaps those days that I think even younger members of our society would be interesting in reading. Many people might not even know that Elvis was here at the rodeo. So I would encourage anyone that thinks they can do it, especially senior people that can remember some of those things, to start it and give it a look. I think a lot of people could write a book.
Yeah, no question about it. So if you were, as far as writing the book, let's say someone, whether young or old, has that discipline and they have the idea and maybe they can even put it together well. What about the publishing part? How hard is that, or was that for you to get this to where they print it, they publish it, they have it at bookstores, they have it on Amazon?
Writing a book was easy. Writing a book was enjoyable and fun. Getting it published was not fun. I will have to say that to be very truthful. The fun part is writing it, and then it becomes mechanical or a business. You have to continue to pursue ahead even though it doesn't look good. I sent these, I thought getting the book published would be a wonderful thing if I could get a New York company, publisher, big-time people to publish a book. So I pursued that, and after about 30 or 40 rejection notices from all the fat cats in publishing, I never got really a bite. I thought I did, but I didn't. So after giving up on that route, I started looking at Texas publishers, and I talked to some people in Dallas. But as it turns out, I found a small publisher here in Houston who published the book. That was a long, drawn-out process to find somebody to publish it.
That's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work.
William, let's tell people also your website if they want to learn more. The book is Murder on Galveston Bay. Our author today is William Warren. And if they want to go to your website, Bill?
It's WilliamWarrenBooks.com.
That's too easy. They could be driving. They don't even have to write it down.
That's easy.
William Warren
It's even
Books.
easier to go to Amazon than it is to go to the website.
That's right. In fact, I was on there this morning, and I put in the title of the book, Murder on Galveston Bay, William Warren, and it came right up. Amazon is into everything, I think.
I think they are.
They're getting a piece of all the action. No question. Well, Bill, we got 1 minute left. What else would you like to tell people? I have another question, and that is, as you write, as you've written this book, Murder on Galveston Bay, along the way, I'm guessing as an avid reader, you're still reading. How do you balance reading a book and then writing your own at the same time?
I love reading them better than I do writing them, and I think writing it is very, very enjoyable. But when my eyes get lazy at night, it's easier for me to read than it is to write something. I was prepared for this question, sort of. I'll just give you one of the best things that I've ever read in my life is of course the old greats, Ernest Hemingway's Old Man and the Sea. That's a fabulous, fascinating book. But one that'll really make you smile is an old book also, the Don Quixote. A guy named Michael Cervantes in the 1600s wrote that book. You want a few chuckles? Pick up one of those. Some of my favorite mystery writers, there's a fellow over in Louisiana named James Lee Burke who sells millions of murder mystery copies. First time I looked at Barnes & Noble's website for my book came up and his came right underneath mine, and I got a real chuckle out of that because James Lee Burke is a giant in the murder mystery.
And when you mentioned earlier in this show about having the right kind of place to write and having the right environment, I was thinking of Ernest Hemingway. I think he had a pretty cool place to write as well. The author is William Warren. Get his book on Amazon or anywhere else. And Bill, what's the date again if they want to see you there at the bookstore?
April 13th from 2 to 4 is the Galveston Bookshop, about a block off the Strand.
And make a day of it. Get some lunch. See Bill, Murder on Galveston Bay. We call him Bill or William Warren. Thank you for listening to Successful Living with Bill Nampick. And today with William Warren. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.